Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara. We talk about TV shows here. The year is 2021 and the name of the show is Babylon 5. This is season 3, episode 14. It's called Ship of Tears. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. And it is good to be back after 1 week off.
Yes, well done. It's like you never left.
I wasn't looking for praise for my intro.
Just thought, it's been a week. Maybe you forgot.
I think I showed quite well that I hadn't.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, that was one of the best takes of an intro I've ever done. Not that I do multiple takes.
Maybe we should always take 2 weeks off.
I never do. I have to really disastrously mess up for me to say I'll do that again when I'm starting an intro. I'm quite happy to accept a flub.
Yeah.
And roll with it. Some people panic. Some people panic and go, "Oh no, I've made a mistake. What do I do?" That's okay.
No, we're very much who we are in a one-take way.
Yes, flaws and all. So yes, pretty interesting episode actually. Obviously, we had the weird Arthur one last time, so this was kind of back to the meat and potatoes, if you will, of Babylon 5 with Bester. Proper big scenes with Jakar and Dillon having emotional interactions, some hints to things to come, and lots of exciting stuff.
Some new uniforms, or at least new jackets or something.
Yeah, it was the same uniform, but yeah, they had a new formal it was oh, we're going off the station, we have to put on our, even though they're still on another ship, so I assume the temperature's the same. It's not like they're going outside. Oh, we have to have a jacket.
It's an extra layer.
Maybe the ships don't have as, I don't know, maybe they have to try and save on the heating a little bit because the energy's a bit more they don't have as much, so they're trying to conserve.
Maybe things are cooler on planet Minbar, so they have to keep things cool inside the White Star.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, maybe this is for the Minbari. Yeah, this is their preferred temperature. So for Ivanov and Sheridan, they're oh, we need to get snuggled up here in their fancy dress jackets.
Actually, I wasn't quite sure what it was at first because I was looking at Ivanova on screen, and it was just like how I am right here. And I'm like, is she wearing a vest? I couldn't figure out what it was. And then when they, do a wider angle, you could see, oh, it's like a drape. It goes all the way down. Or not all the way down, but 3/4 length, like a cape almost.
Medium close-up is the what do you call
that? Thank you.
Just so you don't have to go like I am right now.
Medium. That's a good way to describe me. I'm medium good.
I'm, I don't know, below average, subpar.
You don't have to go into
Fixer upper.
The ladies love that, right?
Possibly a lost cause. one of these options. Decide for yourselves in the comments below. Yes, Bester. Although we should probably just get the opening scene out of the way because it's kind of separate from everything else. Which is that the Interstellar News Network is back on the air, but unfortunately it's been overtaken by the government, and it is now a propaganda machine. And they almost use the phrase "fake news" in this when they're describing, they say, "Oh, this was made to look like the government were attacking the news building," but that's not true.
Yeah.
They said they called it a fake report or something to that effect, and I was like, "Oh, that is so close to the terminology that we use today, so close,
too close."
Yes, but yeah. So immediately, obviously, everyone's like, "This is bullshit. This is them lying through their teeth. This is a shame." And we move on, but it gives you a sense of how things are going back on Earth. Not Santiago.
Plus, everybody was really looking forward to coming back since they've been cut off from communications with Earth, and everyone there is just so isolated. They were going to get some stories from home, and nope, it's just state TV now.
Yeah.
So forget that.
Which included the line. I'm paraphrasing maybe slightly, but it was along the lines of. President Clark has now eradicated almost all crime. that was the sentiment in one of the sentences. So
yeah, I mean, weren't they kind of saying that there was no crime on Earth anymore anyway because they just call it something else? I think the lady who takes her clothes off in front of Sheridan says something like that.
Yeah, they just reclassify it. It's like, oh, we rebrand it. Oh,
Yeah.
that's not illegal now. That's just slightly inappropriate. So therefore, crime is down because we're not calling that a crime anymore. Yes. So yeah, but yes, the big thing though is there's a ship. Sheridan is test piloting some new fancy fighter ship that's got more stealth capabilities, and it can go into the atmosphere of a planet. So it's like, oh, we got some fancy new ships to play with.
Yeah, apparently the front panel is very bright and got lots of colorful lights on it because his helmet's always reflecting lots of stuff.
It was very shiny.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a very shiny overall look. But they get a call. There's a small ship, drifting in space, a little beacon. So they go and check it out. And would you believe it? It's his best friend Bester, who's here intentionally to see them and didn't come knocking on the door because it had to be through the back channels, it had to be undetected, it had to be all these things, and there's a lot of caution from Sheridan to make sure that he can't scan them and read them. Although credit to the show here, because I was thinking, oh yeah, Sheridan has to be careful here because Bester might scan them and whatnot. But the very next scene with Franklin and Garibaldi, I think, well, maybe it was Franklin and Ivanova, but either way, Franklin says, but why do we care if he scans us now? Everything we were hiding's kind of happened. There's nothing left. What's the big deal? So that's not to say there's not reasons for danger with Bester poking around in their heads, but
there's no reason for Bester to try to dig up something from Babylon 5 though, which is what they're afraid of.
Yeah, I mean, Ivanova has still got the one secret that she obviously doesn't want to be found out, but it was a very good point. It was a really I feel like as people who sit and talk about TV shows, episodes of this show for 40 minutes at a time, but obviously we don't necessarily predict things correctly a lot, or even half the time, or even every so often, but we tend to understand what the show's been telling us, give or take, so far, because we're thinking about it, we're analysing it, we're discussing it, we're taking it in. This is one of the times where the show kind of went, no, but keep in mind that this actually isn't important anymore. It kind of pointed out something that we hadn't thought of yet. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a good point. Very good. So, very neat. But yeah, so he's there with information about a ship that the Shadows, who he claims to be against. He doesn't want some outside force taking over Psychor and the Earth
right, which
system.
I mean, we commented before because we saw Morden with the Bureau 13, and we commented that Bester wasn't there. So our speculation was, well, why would they get Walter Koenig for just one scene? Maybe he couldn't do it, so that's why he wasn't there. But maybe he wasn't there because he's not really part of that.
Yeah, I remember very clear, us thinking about, okay, there's two options here. Either this is separate from him, which could be very interesting, and that seems to be the direction that we've went in, and is interesting because it's okay, now he's kind of this weird,
ally?
Yeah, he's kind of an uneasy ally where it's okay, because he even says enemy of my enemy. I almost said enemy of my enemy. Enemy of my enemy in this episode.
Very different.
Yeah, very different thing. I don't know how you do an enema of an enema. It's Inception levels of enemas. I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know. I'm sure there's a video somewhere on YouTube or maybe
not on
a
YouTube.
different channel.
Yeah, not on YouTube. But I feel like you have to go to somewhere skeevier to get that one.
I'll take your word for it. Yeah, I guess maybe Bester is becoming sort of like a Q almost. When he shows up, you get really excited, oh, this guy, we love to hate him, he's here, and we don't really trust him, but maybe he can't be an ally.
And he's got a good chemistry with a few of the cast members now. There's not as much of it in this episode, but I was reminded at the one moment where he refers to regular humans as the mundanes, and Garibaldi sort of chimes in and says, oh, and that would be us. And the way Bester just goes,
oh, you got that so fast.
Got it in one, Mr. Garibaldi. He just is so smug.
Good. Yeah.
Just the chemistry between some of them is actually quite nice.
Yeah, and I don't think that Walter Koenig is like a good actor, but he is really fun to watch.
He's got charisma. I think I can accept someone who's not the most believable, maybe is a bit animated, as long as they've got charisma.
Yeah.
I would take that over someone who is believable but has no charisma any day of the week. Any day. So,
well, depending on the scenario, sure, or what kind of show you're watching. Like for Babylon 5, yeah, it works fine.
So Ivanova gets sent in first to sort of see if he's trustworthy, because she can tell if he's scanning her. But he seems to be on the up and up in as much of what he's there to do, which is to go out to the ship. He says that he can detect this ship, and Sheridan's like, well, we didn't know you had that ability. Like, you kept that to yourself. He's like, oh yeah, we've always kept that secret because we don't want them putting telepaths on the front line. And I'm like, you know what? Actually makes a lot of sense. This is just you playing the system a little bit. It's very interesting. So they go out to the ship and they're able to take it. And what's really surprising is that the shadow ship that is there decides to retreat and does not attack. And we actually do get an answer for this by the end of the episode as to maybe why it did retreat. Something that is very interesting. Ties into some stuff we've heard from Jakar before, which comes up later in the episode. Garibaldi cracks the code, as it were. But what we find on the ship, which we believe to be weapon components, turns out to be, at first, when we first see them, we just see humans in like cryo sleep, but then it's like, oh no, they're telepaths specifically, and seem to mostly be telepaths who were on the run, or maybe were, because at least the one example we get was held in a detention center in Mars because she was trying to run or refuse to take the meds like Ivanova's mother did. And we get some wonderful stuff out of this. I really enjoyed what I'm going to refer as slightly Tetsuo-esque, where this woman who's a telepath like takes over like the med bay, and she gets entangled in all the cables.
I mean, there's a few things I can probably compare it to, but you know which one it reminded me of the most is the Superman sequel. Is it 2 or 3?
It's 3. I know what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah. That scene was traumatic when I was a kid, so it's kind of burned in my brain.
How techno horror, which is people merging with like machines and cables and metal, is underused. Not enough things do it, especially in mainstream, I think, Western media. And
well, yeah, plus now things like it's important to make it as human as possible looking, instead of like, no, we like the Borg design of just cables sticking out. And,
oh yeah, I love it.
Or another one is the episode The Nth Degree with Barclay, when he basically takes over the mind of the Enterprise and like is strapped in through the holodeck, and he's got all these cables coming out of his brain and stuff. I don't know if you have remembered that one. Maybe not. I'm pretty sure you've seen that episode.
No, I have. I'm just basking the way that you said another episode, and then didn't even say what show you were talking about. You just assumed everyone would know that you had slipped into Star Trek mode.
Next gen.
Next gen. So
yeah.
But no, like, I really loved this visual. It was kind of creepy. It was kind of different from what the show's done before. So they all come into the med bay, like, and Bester, like when he's looking, because she's got like an identification bracelet on, and they take this to Bester, and he's looking at it. He's like, well, this part indicates that she's a telepath of like at least a P11 or whatever, which is quite high. So it's as high as him pretty much, and. But then he kind of has this look in his face, like he's realized something, and he's like, I need to go see her right now. Like, take me to her. And when they go down there, she's wrecked the place. She's like tangled all the cables. She's shooting lightning sparks at the Psychor badge, and Franklin's trying to talk her down. He's able to like sedate her eventually, but it's a nice, fun little standoff with some cool visuals. And what we effectively learn is that all of these people that were being taken were telepaths, and they were going to be used as some kind of weapon. And then they sort of like deduce from stuff they already know, which is that the ships that they use, their ships, are built around a living person, not unlike the planet down below in a lot of ways. So there's a person at the center of it, or a being, I should say, rather than a person at the center of it. I'm sure it maybe varies from ship to ship who they've used. It's probably like the Borg, where they can take any living being and shove them in there and say, okay, but do. There you go. And so they're like, okay, so that's interesting. And obviously we'll get to the other revelations with Jakar and that in a bit, but that's interesting already. As is the aliens. So there's an alien corpse that was like flying this ship, and he kills himself with like a weird acid or something. So he's all kind of deformed. But we actually see from the telepath's like memories, like she gets like these glimpses of the operation that they were doing on her, and they're kind of like classic looking aliens, for the lack of a better term. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And I don't think that these are shadows, unless the things that we've been seeing.
Well, we've seen what shadows look like.
Well, that's what I was going to say. These things that we've been seeing, unless they're like just like a projection to be intimidating because they're kind of freaky and whatever, and in reality they're actually just normal looking alien dudes.
Yeah, but we've seen them. We've seen their silhouettes also, and they're kind of like spider-like, aren't they? Or insect-like.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
You're talking about because when Morden's there and they like pick up on the camera, there's like a little shimmer outline of it. Okay,
that's what I'm talking about.
So it's still a projection.
I mean, I'm not saying I think this. I'm not saying that I'm leaning towards this. It was just for a brief moment I thought, what if that's all just like, oh, these are creepy as shit, and that's why they use them. Yeah.
I mean, I just thought it's some other race that's working for them or something.
It probably is, because let's face it, they've very much established at this point that they don't have allies, but they have people that they have manipulated. They have races that they have roped in, possibly under duress, possibly not. But either way, like this is not the first alien race that they've worked with to make their ends work. So. If nothing else, these are, well, I suppose the fact that these aliens were doing an operation suggests they're more than this, but I was going to say that maybe they're just the smugglers that were getting the bodies to them, but the fact that they were doing an operation on her would imply that they also do the heavy lifting as well. They do the actual, at least part of this, the actual, science work involved in whatever goes on, but no, interesting lore. There was a lot of interesting lore in this episode.
Yes, I agree.
And this was the first chunk of it.
I did like the scene of her like flashback, because they are very classic looking aliens doing a like classic operating on a human thing from their like an abduction perspective. It was very fire in the sky.
It's also a very cheap way of doing this like moment when you have you have no money for it, because you do this POV shot looking up at your three aliens looking down at you, and the only thing you have to have is a couple of lights in the ceiling, and the room's just otherwise completely black. There's no set. Like that's the genius of how they shot this, is that there's no set here. They didn't have to have a set. So, well,
one of the things that the show's known for is where can we cut costs.
I mean, all TV does, especially in the 90s, but even today, they always have to cut costs here or there, but. This was very economic filming, was this? Yeah. So, good. I mean, it's when you can justify it, but when it doesn't feel like, because I don't think this came across as like, oh, they're trying to cut around things. If anything, it would have made it less creepy if we got a wide shot of some weird alien room,
Probably. I mean, we've had that before, and it's been disappointing. Yeah,
the mystery of not seeing it is part of the charm and part of the mystique. So. Yeah, you take it as it is. And we have to talk about Jakar. We have to talk about Dillon. And Jakar still wants to be involved. He goes to Ivanova, who passes it on to Sheridan. And Sheridan speaks to Dillon. And Dillon is adamant that she has to be the one to not only like sort of like properly bring Jakar into the War Council, but kind of like confess that they knew more than they were letting on for a while, because she does genuinely believe that it would have made a difference as far as saving like the Narn population would go, but he's still going to feel betrayed by that regardless, and she still has to sort of make amends with that. In fact, maybe my favourite beat of the entire episode is at the end of their scene when she says, perhaps one day when this is all over, you can forgive me. The way Jakar kind of smiles as he says, but not today, I thought was a really nuanced delivery of that line.
Yeah, he's pissed. And I was thinking, like, why is Jakar not in their club already? And, it didn't even occur to me, like, well, they're going to have to admit to him that they knew that there was another enemy and that the Centauri were involved and that their people were victims to it. And maybe they could have stopped it, but that would have, meant it more difficult for them to defeat this larger enemy. So, I mean, Jakar's been talking about sacrifice. They sort of made the sacrifice for him. And that would be a hard thing to admit to him.
Yeah, well, no, I wouldn't necessarily say they made the sacrifice per se, because it's not like... Because I agree with her. I don't think it would have changed anything. I also...
Well, I don't know. I mean, if they were targeting Mimbar or Earth, it might have been different.
I mean, possibly. But that's quite a weird thing to consider, though. Given what we've seen on the show, I don't necessarily think anything would have changed drastically, other than the Shadows would have perhaps just came out more guns blazing, and therefore, like, everyone would have been screwed.
Maybe not, though, because the Shadows have this big plan of like taking over everything anyway. So if they can just go in guns blazing, like, why would they bother with the big plan?
That's a good question, but we don't have the answer for that yet.
So, saying maybe they were wrong. Maybe they were wrong to not let Jakar in and save
You're having fun debating this, but this is not the point of the scene. Because the heart of this scene is the fact that Jakar accepts this and even refers to the fact that he's been talking about sacrifice and says that, I saw this as something that was to come, but it's actually already happened as well. It's something that I'm already living through, and that's kind of the sad truth. And this is the moment where Dillon, I think, sheds a tear as she's listening to him. And a big part of this scene is that Jakar even says, if you'd have told me this whilst the invasion was going on, whilst the war was happening, I probably would have just killed you where you stood in anger. But that's the point of this scene is that this is not the Jakar that was around at that time. This is a Jakar that has grown. And he was already showing signs of being better around that time. There was moments of growth, but this is a Jakar in the last several episodes who has had this kind of epiphany, who has had a greater sense of purpose, and accepts this. It's still hard for him to hear. He still reacts to it. He's still emotional about it. He's still honest about how he might have reacted to it before, but he is able to take it and is able to sort of like maybe not make peace with it, but at the very least kind of like accept it and move forward.
Whatever gets me into the club.
So yes, I think and part of the reason why I think the debate of like would it have changed anything is almost kind of moot is because I think it doesn't matter because Jakar accepts it. Because I think he does in this scene, right? He doesn't argue the point. He kind of gets it and understands and agrees, even though he hates it. Of course he hates it. Why wouldn't he hate it? Yeah. But so it's a every so often this show will give us like one of these scenes where it's like two of the best actors just like here have this emotional like debate or argument, or in this case it wasn't even a debate or argument. This was a confession. This was less, I mean obviously it does set up things going forward, but it was less about setting up the future and more about clearing the past. But we're so invested in these two characters that it doesn't matter. It doesn't feel like, oh, we're stopping to dwell on past things. No. This is interesting because it is this, like, the forming of this alliance with Jakar is something we've been rooting for actively for episodes and episodes now. So, I'm not going to lie. And I think they did something really smart here where the entrance into the War Council room, because they tease earlier in the episode, or right, in fact, I even think it's right before they go in, Dillon says, oh yeah, we've just got a new space, new equipment or whatever. Like she says, they've just finished setting up new stuff for us. So when we get this almost this POV shot or over the shoulder shot as he walks into this War Council and he looks around and sees everyone looking up at him, it's actually the first time I think we get to really see this round table. And yes, it's a round table, and there was a lot of Arthur stuff in the last episode. Okay, I'll acknowledge the little reference. Okay.
I guess this is the same round room that we saw before that didn't have anything in it.
I don't know if I'm going to answer this in two parts. In terms of in-show continuity, maybe. In terms of the physical set they're using, definitely.
Definitely. I remember seeing the round room before going, oh, I didn't know this room existed on the station.
Yes.
I think we commented on it, but...
so, I mean, it may as well just be that same room in continuity.
I don't remember it being so white.
Yeah. But in terms of, like, is it the same set they used before? Yes, it definitely is.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like, it's cool. They had to turn some room into this. It's not like the room just appeared out of nowhere. It was there.
Yeah.
It was on the station. There was space allocated for this. It's fine. So
I love that you're still so salty about the King Arthur stuff.
I wouldn't say I'm salty. I'm just... someone asked in the comments if I'd seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and I have. It was a long time ago, but I didn't like it that much, which upsets a lot of movie fans. Movie fans love Monty Python. I'm lukewarm. I'm lukewarm on Monty Python.
I am as well.
Yeah, I thought I went to that movie thinking I'd love it because I love Fawlty Towers and John Cleese, and then didn't work for me that much.
I love Fish Called Wanda.
I love Fish Called Wanda too. I think Fish Called Wanda's a great movie. John Cleese is great. The rest of that Monty Python crew, don't know.
Oh, Michael Palin's pretty good.
I don't know.
Oh no, I like there's a really funny one whose name I forgot. Oh gosh darn it. He's got the curly hair. Very eccentric. Eric Idle. Oh god. Okay. It was there. It was there the whole time. Eric Idle's my number one.
Is that Billy's brother?
No. I don't think. They are both British, so maybe.
That's just if it's even spelled the same way. I don't know if it is.
I don't think so.
So, but yes, but yeah, no, I think that's a really neat touch. Though, is the first time we really get to see this room, at least in this fashion, all done up, is from Jacquard's perspective as he walks in, and he does seem pleased to be there. And it's not too long before Garibaldi, who's still looking at that book of Jaquan, comes rolling in and says, "No, everyone needs to assemble. I've got info. I got news. This is important." And
it's interesting that now that Jacquard's there, that he wouldn't just like, well, I can be your expert on Jaquan now because I'm here, instead of making Garibaldi do the translation one word at a time.
I mean, I don't think he has I mean, it's not like he has a chance though, right? This is like right after he's joined. Garibaldi's already just like came in with a revelation.
Yeah. If I were in Garibaldi's place, I'd be like, here's your book back. I got through the first chapter.
But he comes in and he says...
It took 5 years.
He comes in and he says to Jacquard, who's now at the the meeting with everyone, he says to him, so you don't have any telepaths, right? And he's like, well, yeah, that's a something that really concerns us. No, we don't. The telepath gene, we've tried for generations and it's never worked. But he's like, but you did have telepaths. And he's like, yeah, 1,000 years ago. I love that we learned this. I don't know what, half a dozen episodes ago. Something, I don't know. It's hard to tell, but it was recently. It was relatively recently, but not in the last couple of episodes. We learned this fact. There's this detail that there was once upon a time Narn telepaths, and they were wiped out. In this episode, and the reason why it's so smart storytelling wise and long term storytelling is that this revelation here that the shadows fear telepaths actually feels really well planted, because immediately you understand that that's why they were hunted down and killed 1,000 years ago. Because we didn't know for sure it was just the shadows who did that. It could have been whoever else. But this episode kind of really clears up that timeline where 1,000 years ago is when the shadows occupied Narn, and they hunted down the Mind Walkers, as they called them then, to make sure the opposition was taken care of. and they speculate, the characters, that maybe the reason why they're using telepaths in their ships is kind of twofold. One, they're taking potential opposition telepaths off the table, and two, it means maybe they can counter telepaths, and therefore maybe that's the reason why they ran, because Bester was on the ship, which is wonderful, because in the back of my head throughout most of this episode I was thinking, okay, Bester's came to them with information, but like he's a bit of a liability to even trust him because he's so sleazy and creepy and like he's not trustworthy. But then you have this where he might actually be the secret weapon that can take on the shadows, and all of a sudden he's
and they don't have
indispensable.
Talia anymore.
They don't, no.
Who wasn't just like a powerful telepath, but like the most powerful telepath.
Which is actually got a nice bit of tragic irony in hindsight now when you think about it, because Bester's whole thing where he's like, oh no, in the future I see telepaths as the supreme race, blah blah blah. So still living up to the Nazi-ness of his uniform a little bit by basically talking about telepaths as the master race. But he's like, yes, but I want humans to be on top and telepaths to be at the top of the humans, and we can't do that if like aliens are like working with the president and taking over first. So the reason why I'm saying there's some dramatic irony there, the idea of what happened to Talia, is that in essence, and we don't know, he didn't activate or necessarily even was involved in the program that created Talia. He at least denied it at the time, but he was the one who mentioned dissecting her. Yeah. So I think it's kind of interesting in a dark way that he took out a telepath who might have actually been becoming more powerful than him, so that he was still at the top of the food chain. Whether or not he knew that or not, I think it's an interesting little thematic point to tag on to all this.
Wah, wah.
I mean, that one might be purely coincidence rather than intentional, but doesn't matter. It's there. I found it. It enhanced things.
Totally.
Great success.
And I guess his lover, who's carrying his child, also is as powerful as him.
Well, given all this integration she's been doing with electronics, I'm expecting some Demon Seed style baby to come out of there.
I live.
Oh,
that's a great movie.
That is a very obscure movie to reference. I apologize, everyone, but check out.
Well, I think we've talked about it before because. Let me get a visual aid here. Guess who's in it?
Yes. Garrett Graham might appear. A young Garrett Graham, for that matter. It's 70s after all.
Very young, yeah.
Yes. But we did review that on our movie podcast, The Atomic Cinema Experiment. That's where we review sci-fi movies.
Hey, that's a great show.
So go check that out on Male Fuzz Movies. You're welcome. Or your podcast app of choice, alternatively. So, yeah, no, that stuff was interesting. But this was like, I don't know if I completely buy that Bester is genuine about this, like, love of his life, and like this is the one promise he ever made to anyone. It's the only time he's ever been in love, because Sheridan points out, don't you have a wife and son back on Mars? And he's like, I do, but that was like and we know the telepath, the Psychor do this because they tried to do it with Talia, where and Bester's like, yeah, that was like an arranged thing though for like compatibility and like a kid who would be the best telepath possible. But that
they're always trying to unlock the new types of telepaths and such. So everything is done through eugenics.
Yeah. So again, like everything that was brought up in this episode about the shadows fearing telepaths was backed up with prior seeds that were sort of planted earlier in the season. This stuff with like Bester's family life, as little as a point as this may be, is backed up because we've heard multiple times about them doing this, where they pair up telepaths to get the best telepath kids. So this idea that he fell in love with someone is an interesting concept. Now, I'm not saying this is a failure of the writing, because I don't think the writing wants us just to buy into him completely. Because I don't think Bester's written that way, where we're supposed to just be like on his side now and think, oh no, we can trust Bester because he's in love. I think we're still supposed to be a little, hesitant and. Well,
she might be carrying his kid. They can probably, confirm that in the med lab.
Yeah, Franklin will take her to his bedroom and confirm it.
Yikes.
I didn't want to say bedroom. I meant to say quarters, but I couldn't think of the word, so I just had to. I had to like pick a room. It made it clear it was his quarters, but it made it sound even
poor
worse.
Franklin, he's never going to escape that episode.
But it made him sound even more pervert than just quarters, because it was like specifically the bedroom.
Yeah, it really did.
But yes, so yes, so yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that's been seeded before that enhanced everything that was revealed in this episode, and everything that's revealed in this episode is very intriguing for the story going forward in terms of this. Like, do you know what? See, when Bester showed up in season 1, I thought, okay, this is a one-time special appearance by a guy from Star Trek. You know, that'll be it. We're not going to see him again, especially since the next time we saw Psycho, he wasn't there. I was like, they couldn't get him back. That's him gone. The fact that he's shown up now every season, and it feels like with what they've set up, it feels like we're going to see him at least one more time, if not multiple times. I'm surprised at that. And
I don't know. I sort of was thinking that Bester would be like the ultimate baddie when we first saw him. Mostly because the comments and stuff we were getting on the episode were just like, oh, Bester, he's my favorite villain or whatever. And he's the best written character in the show. Or I shouldn't say that. You know what I mean? Like, people were really excited about his appearance and that we should be excited to see him again. So I was thinking early on that he was going to be the big baddie of like either one of the seasons. But that's all right.
It may still go bad. Maybe something will happen to his...
Now he's kind of like a more gray area, right? Like, he's not
for sure.
so evil anymore because we need him to be an ally.
He's a necessary evil, perhaps, one might say. Because it's not like he's a goody two shoes. I mean, like I said earlier in this episode, he's like, yes, I want to be the head of the master telepathic race. Like, so he's not like a noble heroic figure by any means. He's still got a lot of dodgy impulses.
No, but I mean, even the last time we saw him, he was sort of like there to try to help Babylon 5 because he was trying to catch somebody who was like legitimately dangerous to the station.
Do you know what it is? It's nuanced. It's more interesting because he's got layers. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
Like that's what makes him interesting. He's not. We're at this point in the show now where all the main characters are fairly complex, right? They all have like the vices. They have good sides, bad sides. Some are obviously more heroic by nature than others, but. Like when you look at a character like Jakar, I mean, in fact, if anything, the conversation with Jakar and Dillon is almost like a victory lap of like showing like this is how far we have brought Jakar since season 1, and it's felt natural. Every part of it's been earned along the way. So when Dillon says, you've come so far, Jakar, further than I thought possible, it's all you could almost read that as a meta kind of like. Yeah, we did this. We had this character progression, not in like an arrogant like the writers patting themselves in the back kind of way, just in a. Like, you can kind of, like, we can read that as the audience and go, yeah, we agree with Dillon. Like, this is actually quite impressive how far he's come.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched season 1 since we reviewed them, but I did watch The Gathering again. And, yeah, Jakar was kind of a villain in that.
Yeah, he's
like trying to sneak weapons on board and always yelling. Yeah.
Yeah, so, super exciting. And I, the next time Jakar and Londo are together again, I'm kind of excited for the subject of shadows to come up, because now that Jakar knows completely and utterly like everything,
I suspect it will be in an elevator.
I love a good elevator scene on this show. Or waiting for an elevator, as it sometimes is. But right. No, I can't help but be excited. I mean, there was obviously some little comedy beats and stuff that we kind of glossed over, like Bester sitting in Sheridan's chair, his captain's chair, Sheridan getting pissed, which is amusing. I don't have anything to analyze. It's just a fun bit.
Get out of my chair. Sure.
Yeah. I suppose you could read into it and say, it's a further like little wink tease of like, is Bester going to betray them and take over kind of thing. Like, it's almost like a little joke way of teasing it.
There was a moment in the beginning with Ivanova talking about maybe I shouldn't be so cynical, but then this stuff happens with the channel being taken over by the government. That was cute.
Yeah. The show tends to be full of these little things, or even Garibaldi, like just sort of like poking at the Book of Jaquan and like,
do not thump the Book of Jaquan.
It's very disrespectful. Don't do it. I'm also Garibaldi, like, so I'm not supposed to dog ear it then if I'm trying to like remember specific pages or.
Ooh.
What's your feeling on highlighting?
It looked like a. It looked like a very ancient book.
It did, yes. Well, there wasn't a lot of corners, to be fair. Look at all the corners have been worn away over time. So maybe all the ancients were dog earing too much, you know?
Yeah, that's what happens.
Too much dog earing. It leads to raggedy corners. Oh, well. It was a good episode, though. I enjoyed this one quite a bit.
I agree.
Probably the best episode in a few, because it felt like a nice payoff to some character stuff and set up a lot of really interesting mythology things to go forward and some hope in the fight.
Yep, and we got Bester back.
And we got
who's
Bester.
Always welcomed.
Yes. I've ran out of puns for the name Bester. I was trying to think of a new one, but you're simply the Bester. Dun, 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 dun. Bester than all the rest.
Okay, we're done.
Oh, thank you for joining us, everyone.
Let's go talk about Dune now.
Don't give away the recording schedule. Yes, we're going to record the Dune review next. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us. Please do let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. All of that does help us out a lot. It helps all YouTube channels. That's why everyone tells you to do it. So please hit the buttons. But you can support us as well, of course, over in Patreon, can't you, Tara?
That's right, Peter. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes for other shows we do. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these reviews 6 days early. So head on over and check that out. Thank you.
And as previously mentioned, check out our movie podcast, a sci-fi movie podcast, The Atomic Cinema Experiment, which I'm double plugging because we just mentioned the Dune review, and that's what we're about to go do. So by the time this goes out, that should already be up. Well,
speaking of dog earing.
Did you actually read it in time before the movie?
No. I read the first. Hey, I had some things pop up. So I was not able to finish it. I got 324 pages in, though. That ain't bad.
Good to know. This is not relevant to Babylon 5. Sorry, folks. Thank you once again for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Babylon 5. Just don't give away the home world.